actually don't. Do
No,
you know what I mean? Because we're too busy doing brain food.
I know. I don't know
So
anything
yeah,
about you.
I know. Like, who the heck is this guy? Should I say? Blooper away.
Uh,
Anyway, welcome everybody to Brain Food Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday. No fail. We are on the finishing stretch of another crazy year in recruitment, another crazy year chronicled every week on this show. It's episode 347. And we're going to continue our kind of review of the year. So December is always look back. And we've got episode 2 of essentially a 4-part mini series where we're looking back on the main things that have happened in 2025. And today we're going to be talking about candidate experience, a candidate assessment, and DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. In case we've forgotten what that was. So we've got a bunch of really interesting guests, domain experts to come in and talk to us about all of this. Love to get your contributions in the chat as well. And so, yeah, let's rock on. Now, firstly, let's do some sound checks. Just want to make sure audio is fine. Folks, if you can hear me in Crowdcast, do let me know in the comments whether everything is fine there. LinkedIn went down today. I'm sure you're all aware. Once again, our dependency on like centralized systems is very apparent. But hopefully LinkedIn is back, in which case we are live streaming it there as well. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn and you can hear and see me okay, do let me know and in the comment thread there. Okay, thank you, Finley. Finley, good to see you, sir. Great to see Maddie here as well. Bass is here also. Fantastic. Does anyone else feel Hung is wearing a hairpiece? Thank you, Bass. That's very kind of you. I'm happy for people to debate the issue. Is this a hairpiece? Yes or no? I mean, let me know in the comments, mate. All good. Anyway, moving on. We have to firstly thank our sponsors, because our sponsors are, without Brain Food Live, we cannot continue. Without sponsors, Brain Food Live cannot continue. This week, of course, our wonderful sponsors are a fellow Scottish kind of a tech startup. It's Willow, of course. Willow are one of the leading businesses that can help you scale your hiring, particularly high volume hiring, with their video interviewing solution. They've got a wonderful report coming out. I think it's already come out, actually. And we're going to be doing that as a kickoff show for next year. So the first show of next year will be you and Cameron, myself and Adam, hopefully, together reviewing his hiring report. That's on January 7th. It's going to be a special on Wednesday. That's going to kick us off next year. But thank you, Willow, of course, for sponsoring this episode. Willow.video, in case you are a recruitment company or an organization in a recruitment department that has a huge high volume sort of recruitment need, and you need to really get your time back for your recruiters. Use a tool like Willow. It may well do the job for you. Anyway, there we go. Adam Gordon in situ as well. I think everyone thinks I've got wearing a toupee, mate. I don't know where that's come from, but that seems to be the case.
It's because of the close like sides you've got there, and the way it's laying on the top of your head, like, I don't know, some bird's feathers is what it could be.
It's usually a number 2, but for some reason it went to number 1 and it kind of skinned down a little bit. It's definitely not more than my thing. Ibiza Final Boss. I'm not sure I like that, Mogs.
It's not that. But it's not that.
Yeah, I probably need a complete revamp sort of after this show. Anyway, Adam Gordon, great to see you, man. Did you read the newsletter last week? And if so, let's run through a few things that was interesting for you, mate.
I did. And, you know, I've started the last few weeks on this with talking about the poll. The polls are always really interesting. So your poll this week was about, have you got your headcount plan in place for 2026? And there was some interesting stuff. You put a big red circle around 30% who said that they'll have it done sometime in 2026. 37% said it'll be done in December. 27%, so that's, bear in mind, that was like the end of November. 27% said it was already done. Personally, I feel like J.K. Rowling could write a better headcount plan at this point. We're in a period of more workforce disruption and dynamism than I can certainly remember. So I just can't quite understand why any headcount plan beyond about like 2/4 away is anything more than fiction at this stage.
That's a really good point. I mean, I put, as you said, red markers on it, but I do get your point. Like, does it make any sense anymore? Because no one knows how to right size any department. Like, we have no clue what is the right size of department for any department. So is it realistic to even think about doing a 12-month plan and say, oh, we're hiring these amounts of people? I suppose you can do it, but then with a massive buffer on either side to say, yeah, it might be this, or, you know, give or take 30 or 40% either way, in which case, what does that even mean, you know? Anyway, yeah, interesting. Always do the polls. Make sure you vote on it yourself when you're there. I do 2 polls, by the way. I do one on Sunday on the newsletter, but I also post on Saturday where I do a poll on LinkedIn as well. So you can check out a different poll. So you can check that out as well if you're interested in just contributing your view with regards to what you think is happening in recruiting. Okay, cool. Give us a couple more, mate.
So the video that you highlighted from the Brookings Institution about which jobs are going to be impacted by AI. Like, over the last 200 years, technology has replaced routine manual clerical jobs. And that's happened consistently, but this time is different. AI is different because it's exposing high skilled, especially early career jobs in things like lawyers, researchers, consultants, things like that, whereas actually there's quite a lot of experience heavy jobs in things like trades and maybe healthcare, like nursing, things like that, that remain much lower risk. So unlike nearly every technology development over the last 200 years, this one is remarkably different. And that was my takeaway from watching that video. I watched it on 2 times speed because some of it was a little bit droning on, but I did enjoy it. It's good to hear from the academics.
Yep, I thought it was interesting. I agree with you in terms of their delivery. It could definitely have been improved. They could have just piped the entire thing into AI and said, make it more exciting. And they would have done the better job. However, it was very, very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. And is this time, this time it's different. I think definitely is an argument that's gaining more resonance. I get a little bit annoyed that people say, oh, look at the Industrial Revolution, you know, it was horrible for a period. And then look at, you know, all the GDP growth and the growth of the numbers of people that are alive longer than they were before. Life definitely got better. I think yes, and yes. But this type of technology is different in so many ways, particularly in its way that it might self-improve. I mean, the steam engine was not able to self-improve. You know, the light bulb was not able to self-improve. It simply gave a light when there wasn't. But now you have AI that potentially could get better day on day. And its impact on that is very unpredictable. So yeah, anyway, might be worth listening to. A lot of people have listened to it and have, again, agreed with us that it was a little bit boring, but there's some decent content in there. Okay, cool. Give us one more, mate, before we get into this.
Okay, well, let's talk about the LinkedIn is algorithmically down-ranking women's posts issue. So Richard van der Blom wrote about this. Martin Redstone's written about this a lot. I know that Dorothy has written a lot about this, and there's been change.org, can't remember the person's name, but she did a campaign on there. A petition against LinkedIn. Anyway, what the long and short of this is that women's posts are getting down-ranked because they are deemed to be less dynamic, less technical, and maybe about topics that are, you know, more right-brained. Now, it's actually what we call proxy bias. So it's not really deliberately down-ranking women's posts. It's down-ranking posts that it thinks are less technical, effectively. And there is an implicit link between women do more right-brained jobs in things like HR and marketing. There is a higher proportion of women in those jobs, and there is a higher proportion of men in jobs like science and technology, for example. So it is it's a very unfortunate side effect of the proxy bias.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. There's Jan Tegzi has actually pinged me a few times as well on some of the research he's done. I think I'm going to dive deeper into it. It is very interesting. Obviously, it's very emotionally resonant as well. A lot of people are obviously rightly upset if they feel like getting downranked because of their identity. And everyone is feeling annoyed that they have been losing reach. So that, a baseline, none of this would be happening without sort of all of us feeling, oh my goodness, no one's seeing my posts anymore. But yeah, I think I kind of align with you in the sense that, firstly, I don't know the absolute numbers of men and women on LinkedIn. I like, are there more men on LinkedIn than women? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if so, what's the average activity level? I mean, are men occupying occupations, for instance, where LinkedIn makes more sense to be active? I mean, perhaps that's something that could be a factor. And yeah, so very interesting. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into it. Of course, sorry.
One other thing I wanted to add about this, and I hadn't really thought about this, but when I was researching this topic, I learned there is no biological reason why there's more women in right-brained jobs and more men in left-brained jobs. There is no link between gender and being left or right-brained whatsoever. So it's much more of a cultural thing than it is. That's the reason for that.
That is, I mean, I think firstly it's debatable whether you can eliminate the biology. I think there are some sort of biological things we can't deny. But it is also true that a lot of the stereotypical occupations we associate with gender oftentimes is reversed in different places. Like, for instance, if you go to East Asia, almost all of the people doing like rubbish collection, they're actually women. Whereas in Europe, like, you're not going to see many women on the bins. Do you know what I mean? It's a male-only job. So things can flip based on cultural context very, very, very easily. And so there's that. So if traveling widely and being a little bit more multicultural give you a little bit of access to this, but there probably is some propensities, some natural inclinations, I think, that we shouldn't deny. I mean, there's almost no job apart from white collar work, actually. If you take the white collar segment out and you look at the 95% of non-white collar jobs out there, very few of them are actually equitable in terms of gender participation. Sort of it seems to gravitate one way or the other, and for various reasons. So it's definitely worth studying. Anyway, we'll get into this a bit later. In fact, DEIB is a big part of this show, so we're going to get onto it. Let's get our guests on and talk about it. Right, Adam, you and me are going to just be basically not playing idiots, but we know a little bit, but not massive, right? So let's get on with assessment. I think we want to talk about assessment first, didn't we? So Bass, he's in there, and we want Maddie as well. So that where's Maddie in this? There she is. Let's invite.
I know absolutely nothing about an assessment, and I'm not scared to say it. That is the truth.
It's not the truth, though. You do know a little bit because you, firstly, have recruited people, and secondly, you kind of adjacent in recruitment tech, aren't you? So there's Bas van der Hattard. Bas, how you doing? Notably, not wearing a headpiece.
I said, I'm just jealous, mate. I'm just jealous.
That's it, mate.
He looks more like Jason Statham than ever, by the way.
I'll take that as a compliment.
There we go.
I wish I had his abs. Those are below.
I'm pleased you said abs there, mate. I was thinking, what did I hear that right? But that was fine. All right, listen, let's do some intros. Got Maddie here as well. Maddie at least has got the best hair on the entire panel. I think we can all agree. But anyway, Bas van der Hattard, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Bas van der Hattard, and next to organizing the biggest Dutch recruiting event and doing a massive career size research, I help companies with assessment and basically selecting the right tool and figuring out if they're fair and unbiased. And I've actually recently started a podcast on that with the best American who's twice as knowledgeable as me, and at least as autistic as me on the topic, Charles Handler, which the first episode will drop soon.
Yeah, amazing. Feel free to share the link of the podcast in the chat there, Bas. That'd be brilliant. We've got Maddie Roberts here as well. Maddie, wonderful to see you, and what a wonderful background you have there. How fantastic is that?
I think fairy lights are just not just for Christmas, so that's, you know, it's a personal thing.
Couldn't agree more. I'm going to start installing some stuff myself, inspired by you there, Maddie. Maddie, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Thank you. So I work for NFP People and Talent, who are part of Aon's Human Capital Solutions division. So NFP People and Talent support businesses of all sizes with anything to do with their people, essentially. So organizational change, people development, coaching, outplacement, and of course, talent acquisition. So I head up the talent acquisition solutions business line, and we do recruiter on demand services and exec search. And I also get to play around with all of Aon's assessment tools, which is really cool, but also other tools from other areas as well. So that's me.
Fantastic stuff. Let's stay with you then, Maddie, on this. I mean, I think assessment's been a really interesting space because it's kind of like a bounce back into like high focus with this huge surge of candidates that employers have been experiencing, probably now on to 2 years now. You know, we had the candidate shortage period, 2021. Probably assessment died away a little bit because people were getting like instant offers, weren't they? They were saying, right, are you available? Is this you? Yes, great, you got the job. And no one's doing any assessment. But then suddenly we get a surge of these candidates. We need to assess more. And we get the threat of fraudulent candidates, and suddenly that needs to be laid on in here as well. And suddenly you're starting to see companies that do assessments start like raising huge rounds and stuff like this. So it seems like a very interesting space suddenly. 2025, what do you think has happened in assessments generally that you think is interesting and that is worth us keeping note on, worth jotting on the notepad saying, yeah, that kind of happened?
So I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the biggest trend is no surprise, the volume of candidates or applicants versus the jobs out there is not going away. In fact, it's kind of getting, worse in a way. So we ran a roundtable event recently where we got a lot of business leaders talking about this topic, because I guess it is that bit around how do we actually, if candidates are using AI to, submit their applications, and we've got tools to screen them, how are we actually assessing that capability and that kind of performance? So a lot more use of psychometrics in the top of funnel, which is quite an interesting one. So it's a great predictor of performance, because you can kind of, map the job requirements to competencies and things like that, and then have a really quick assessment of candidate competency. The candidate then gets the report to say, here's where, a quite positive report. But if they didn't meet the criteria, they're getting a report based on personality. So I think has its space. But I think from a candidate perspective, and hopefully we'll hear more about that later, I speak to a lot of candidates who, especially in the sort of neurodivergent, family, that don't feel that is a representation of kind of what they can do and their performance. So I think that's a really interesting topic that I don't know what the answer is to, but certainly more and more companies are using psychometrics at top of funnel.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I do think there's just more filtration, and by the way, this could be genuine filtration in one side, but also kind of disingenuous on the other. Like, are you trying to just throttle the applicant flow? Are you trying to control the amount of people that recruiters see? I think it's hard to divide one way or the other. But definitely, we're seeing some great element of that. So probably. Before we get to Bas, where do you see that going forward? Do you think that's just going to be persistent? I mean, is it so we just have to deal with that, and that's the new way in which we expect recruitment to work? It's not just CV screen and into interview, it's CV screen, then is some sort of assessment, then maybe interview.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see something a little bit different. And we are certainly seeing more in the assessment space. Those branded kind of immersive situational judgment assessments. So built around the company's EVP, based on real life situations and scenarios that candidates could face, but have that situational judgment kind of rigor behind it. I think we will definitely start to see more of that, and hopefully, I think Baz will probably talk about this more, but gamification and different methods of assessment. I think it's just that bit around are there any adverse impacts? What are the candidates saying, thinking, feeling about it? Because that's a really important factor, and especially from a diversity perspective as well.
Yeah, we'll loop back on the CX of all of this a little bit later in this chat and get you guys to have a thought on it. Bas van der Hatart, one of the things that you're really expert on is investigating, what tools, what types of tests. So you go forensically beyond just, here's an assessment. There's all kinds of different tests out there. Are there any in particular that employers seem to be leaning into more in your observation in 2025 compared to 2024?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen, first of all, it's the sectors where they're employed. I see an insane amount of uptake in blue collar work. So all of a sudden, in the Netherlands, DHL is now recruiting their drivers with a game-based assessment, and they got rid of the CV completely. Rituals has got rid of the CV completely for everybody working in their stores globally. And there's they literally said, and they presented at my event, globally they now have 1 million applicants. Now, how are you gonna assess those CVs? So what they did is they implemented a game-based assessment with a little other test, a few genuine knockout questions like, are you allowed to work in the country you're applying in? Do you have your visa, blah, blah, blah. And then they literally give you a space to book an experience with the store itself. So they got rid of everything in between in order to be able to handle those volumes of applicants and give them a really great experience to begin with.
Yeah.
So I've seen an insane uptake there, where in the last couple of years we've seen it mainly for white collar work. It's now mainly blue collar where I've seen really big growth in assessment. And you just mentioned CV assessment. No CV anymore in many cases, just assessment first, and very often no CV whatsoever. It's really interesting. I was at a scientific conference, as you said. I deep dive in those things. I was at a scientific conference on organizational psychology assessments recently, and there's a woman doing right now a study into all the CV-based studies. She found that outside of academia, where basically if you published more, you're going to publish more. That's what a CV tells you. There's one job in the world where a CV has scientifically valid impact. Do you want to guess which one? The future leader of the Chinese Communist Party. All of them had experience with past leaders of the Chinese Communist Party. That was the only job they have ever been able to find a CV had an impact outside of academia. So they're getting rid of the CV, and I'm seeing that happen an insane amount. We also know that actually CV-based hiring, about 85% of all labor market discrimination is at the point of CV selection. So you see it replacing that part. And I see a lot more game-based assessments, because it was actually an Australian, I forgot his name, an Australian scientist, really interesting guy who literally had ChatGPT. He built an agent in ChatGPT doing the questionnaire-based assessments, and he got past all of them. He was invited to every job. He said, this is the job, this is the assessment, make me look good. And he just had ChatGPT answer all the questions, and he passed all of them.
Right. Bas, there's tons of things you've said there. Let's just sort of nail on some of these points that I think are really interesting. So, in some respects, the movement against CVs predated this little period, and it was like this is in the war for talent era. We wanted to increase the sort of numbers of people coming into top of funnel because we didn't have enough people. We also knew CVs were basically prejudicial against individuals that didn't go down a traditional academic kind of criteria. But that sort of thing has persisted through even the AI wave, because what it's saying now is that particularly in blue collar, we're not asking people to just construct a document that's completely meaningless. And these days, of course, with ChatGPT, we're losing the signal with all of these people creating documents that actually do match with the job descriptions, let's sort of say, but it's not good evidence that they can do the job. Better to just go straight to assessment, which is, in some ways positive for D&I, I would imagine, right? I mean, is in a weird way a good moment for DE&I. What are your thoughts?
If you use the right assessment, because there's two things. First of all, some of those tests are not on neurodivergent, as Maddie and also Theo in the chat already pointed out. Also, I've seen really well scientifically validated tests still go extremely racist because they were used for the wrong target area. So I know, for example, security guards at Schiphol, one of the security firms at some point hired an assessment firm, and I got through channels. I was asked, what do you think of these? And I'm like, well, they're excellent for lawyers. That's what they were validated on. Yeah, we're going to use them for security guards. I'm like, yeah, you'd better not, because for every security guard on Schiphol, basically Dutch is their second language. And that's actually a benefit if you're working security at Schiphol, speaking another language. And they're like, yeah, they say it's okay. And within 6 months, they had to cancel the contract because everybody for who Dutch was their second language didn't understand the questions and were selected out. And they're like, yeah, but it was scientifically validated. Yes, on academics. And that's the thing which annoys me the most. If you're asking where do we go wrong in this area, look at the bloody scientific validation documents.
Yeah.
And I was once asked actually to do a checkup on their assessments where Aon was actually the party. So basically, I just started asking them, like, give me your bloody documents. It took them a while because nobody had ever asked them for them in the Netherlands. They had to get their main office to send them over. And I was able to check them. I'm like, yeah, this checks out for this target audience. Great. But even my client hadn't even requested them. So start with asking your scientific validation documents. And anybody who starts to, that's corporate, we can't give them to you, that's corporate, secret corporate. No, it's not. It's basic validation documents. Get them over. In America, they're called tech documents for some reason. We call them in Europe scientific validation. Ask them. And if you don't know how to read them, send them to me. I'll tell you.
Quick question for the audience here, guys. Where are you with sort of use of assessments? I mean, have you implemented anything in 2025? Quick yes, no answer, folks. Let me know in the comments. What did you implement, and in fact, why? Like, what was the motivation behind that? Good to get just a general vibe check as to seeing where we're at. I do think that on the blue collar side, typically it's also high volume recruiting. Actually, I take that back. It's not necessarily high quality, high volume recruiting, but a great percentage of jobs on the front line, sort of say, are typically high volume. In which case, relevancy CV is low, and yes, some sort of assessment is super valid. Very interesting. In terms of technical innovation, and I go to you first on this, Maddie. Have you seen anything on the assessment side that's particularly innovative, or have we kind of got the innovation out of the way over the last 10 years or so? We know kind of the tools that we want. It's just a matter of like educating the audience and distributing it. Where are we with the innovation side when it comes to assessments?
I love this. And I know that this is really kind of a retrospective of the year gone by, but I think we're at a really pivotal point in terms of the tech capability, our understanding of assessment and neurodiversity and the difference of people, and what we're looking for in terms of answering that problem of volume hiring. I think we're at the point where we can really kind of do some cool stuff and build assessment in at all points, as long as we're doing that proper validation. But certainly the tech is there. It's more about how it's applied, and absolutely agree with everything that Baz has said on that. There's some really cool stuff that we can do, but just because we can do it doesn't mean we should. But I would absolutely love to be able to kind of do away with the CV, which is essentially just a bunch of words. So I think it's exciting times.
Final question for you guys before we move on to the next cohort of people.
Can I answer the innovation question as well?
No, we have to move on. Sorry, Baz, time is short. But here's the question I do want you to answer. Basically, all of the AI I'm hearing is like, oh, we've got to personalize outreach, we've got to personalize advert, we've got to personalize this, that, and the other. Do you think there's any validity in personalizing an assessment? Because some people might think, hang on, assessment is just a standardization. We want to get a benchmark. We want to get an up, down, pass, fail. Like, how can that be personalized? And other people might think, hang on, that's inherently problematic because some people are going to be disadvantaged against others. Actually, we need to be more fair. We need to actually understand where the person's coming from and then construct a personalized assessment for that person. Do you think, firstly, it's a good idea? Yes, no. And secondly, have we seen any evidence of innovation in that area at all? So, Baz, why don't you go on this one, mate?
The answer is yes and no. No, we shouldn't personalize it in the questions being asked. But actually, the one innovation I saw, I'm still going to push this in, is where we are able to analyze structured interview questions by large language models and actually give ratings to them. That's the innovation I saw this year. So is it more personalized? Well, yes, because unlike a questionnaire base where I can checkbox my answer, it's an open answer on a lot of questions. The AI analyzes it, sometimes asks follow-up questions to give you extra chances, so you don't, if you're an introvert and you give short answers, it'll ask you a few extra answers. I've seen that innovation going on. And that's actually also personalized, but within a structure of putting them against the same bracket, so to say, against the same model. And that's the innovation I've seen work for the first time this year. And when it comes to personalized assessments, giving people free text opportunities, I think is pretty personalized within the same question. So you can actually have those structured interviews on scale.
Yeah, very, very interesting. It's a tough one, isn't it? Maddie Roberts, what are your thoughts on universalization versus personalization? Now with AI, maybe we can do personalization. I think previously we just didn't practically were able to do it. So therefore we rolled out the universal solution. Now actually practicality wise, we may be able to personalize assessment, but is it a good idea? What are your thoughts?
I wouldn't be able to say much more than Baz has on that kind of topic, but I would say that bit around kind of your understanding of what the company is like. So branded, based on an EVP, like that's real immersive. So I think maybe the innovation is kind of more around having that experience of what it might be like, in this job with this company. I think that's the personalization probably that's, I'm most excited about.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We haven't even asked the question about how to test for AI literacy, which was sort of the next thing, but that's probably going to be a topic on very early topic in Breakthrough Live in 2026, where we've got a full program as well. So I'll have to bring you two back for that kind of conversation. But Bas van der Hattard, Maddie Roberts, thank you so much for joining us and dropping in your wisdom. Brilliant to see you guys. And of course, we'll try and get you back on the show next year ASAP.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Bye.
Could obviously talk more on this topic, Adam. It's one of the, I mean, each topic can basically be spent 3 hours on, but we obviously have limited time, so we have to move things through. But yeah, super interesting. But let's roll on. Let's talk about DE&I. We touched upon it a little bit on the chat with Maddie and Bass, but let's talk about it from a landscape point of view, with people that are expert in the sector, particularly even build businesses in the sector. So let's see where we're at with this. We're going to bring on Theo Smith. Let's see whether Danny Stacey's still here. I hope you are, Danny. There he is. There's Theo. And we've got Morgan as well. Let's go more. Is Theo? I think Theo's muted, I believe. I think everyone comes on muted. It's kind of annoying. You default to mute.
No, you're fine now.
Good. Yeah, it's weird. They default you to mute, so you the first 5 seconds you just kind of rabbit it on. No one's actually hearing. Anyway, we've got Danny here as well. Morgs, you got an invite. Here he is. All right. Whilst Morgs is getting on, let's just do some intros. Theo Smith, who are you? What it is you do?
Theo, I'm the director, founder of Neurodiversity at Work. I wrote the book Neurodiversity at Work. I talk a lot about neurodiversity at work. Go figure.
Fantastic stuff. There he is, Theo Smith, of course, a man you should follow on LinkedIn. We have Danny Stacey here as well. Danny, wonderful to see you. Quick word, who are you? What it is you do?
Hey everyone, Danny Stacey, 20 years, HR, talent, UK government, LinkedIn, Indeed, went freelance on Wednesday, which is very exciting, and help organizations now becoming more human-centric and fair and future-ready. And this is a very cool topic to get invited to speak to. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. And Danny's done some wonderful stuff with Indeed. I think you pioneered their sort of pay transparency initiative, didn't you, Danny? I can't remember when it was. A couple of years ago, I believe. When
I'll take credit for it. Dare to Share program. We annoyed all employers by encouraging employees to tell everyone else what they earn.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Danny Stacey shared on LinkedIn there. Make sure you connect with him. And we have Morgan Lobb, of course. Morgan, great to see you, sir. Quickly, who are you? What it is you do, sir?
Thanks, Hung. Morgan Lobb, founder of Vasida.com. Drop that in the section there. Vasida is a inclusive employer branding platform for talent attraction. It's actually an acronym. It stands for values, environment, respect, culture, inclusion, data, and accessibility.
Goodness me. Lots of words that actually created a very cool name as well. So fantastic stuff, Morgs. All right, brilliant stuff. Listen, you three have all worked professionally on this concept of DE&I and inclusion and all the rest of it. Everyone's read the news. Everyone's can read the cultural vibes. Clearly, there's been a big fracture. I would say US and kind of UK, EU kind of fracture, in my opinion. US are being battered. I mean, a lot of my friends that work in this space, they're in like desperate straits, out of work, turfed out of companies, no freelance opportunities. It's like, oh my goodness, is D&I over even? In the US, it seems that way. What's it looking like UK and Europe, guys? I mean, how does that actually sound? Your thoughts on this, Morgs? Let's go with you. Let's be honest with the state of D&I in 2025.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we speak to a lot of employers. We've got a lot of clients. A lot of them American. A lot of our clients deal with American companies. It's dead. Okay, it's literally death to diversity. The whole rhetoric is fear-based on the back of, if you do diversity, if you have diversity in your website, we're not going to give you government contracts, we're going to threaten to sue you, we're going to withdraw funding. And, companies toe the line on that. They get scared. When you're in an economic downturn, you need every angle you can get to get those dollars rolling in. But there is a but to it. Whilst the terminology is dead, we have had many years of leveling different groups through middle and upper management. They've been given parity, that everyone's had training, we've had diversity drummed into us, we all get it, we all understand it. Suddenly we're told it's the enemy, right? And that doesn't really play to the people. It might play to a particular political narrative, but as we know, the pendulum swings back very quickly. You can't suddenly de-diversify the population because the world is very diverse. Your customers are diverse, your staff are diverse, your suppliers are diverse. So what's happened is there's been this sudden freeze moment, the fight, flight, or freeze. Everyone's gone into panic mode and they're freezing. And we're seeing companies delete diversity. But the reality is the destination remains the same, right? So, on Waze where you say you're going somewhere and it offers you a couple of different routes, well, that route with diversity has changed and there's a new route. But the destination is still, we want the best people for the job. And those best people might be black, they might be gay, they might be old, they might be trans, they might be whatever. We want the best people for the job. And we have to still attract that talent and show them that we are the place that they want to come and work at. So the language is changing, but the ultimate goal remains the same. So I'll kind of give the floor up to the others, but I've got some very interesting snippets to talk about as we unpack it.
Thank you for that monologue, Morgan. And appreciate your candor as well as that inspirational tone that you put through. So thank you very much. Danny, Stacey, your view, again, freelancing now, but you were previously in touch with all of these huge organizations and what have you. What's the vibe check with regards to DE&I in 2025?
Yeah, I was all set to massively disagree with Morgan there, but he won me towards the end. I don't think DEIB died in 2025. I think it's been rebranded, and I think that's the point Morgan was making there. I think the loud language has disappeared because of political pressure, especially in the US, as has been mentioned, and I'm happy to talk about my take on what's gone on there and why it affects us so much. But underneath the hood, I think most organizations haven't really rolled anything back. There's this wonderful Gartner research that's floating around that supposedly 80% of organizations are still saying they're doing the work. They're just doing it under different banners and naming conventions. And I think what has changed is the vocabulary we're using. So instead of sort of DEI, as we're so accustomed to, it's companies using words still like inclusion, but I think belonging, well-being, essentially the same or very similar goals, but much less politically charged. And specifically on that equity piece, I think the biggest misunderstanding this year, in my humble opinion, has been around equity, because equity was never about shaping outcomes. It shouldn't have been anywhere. And I think maybe some organizations went down that route. I think equity has always been and should have been about enabling access. And sometimes examples are helpful. So providing a sign language interpreter for a deaf candidate, that's access, or a magnifier for someone with visual impairment. Theo will know, adjusting assessment so neurodiverse candidates can show their strengths, although it sounds like he's got some interesting research on that as well. I think the point being, those things are all equity, they're fairness, and somewhere along the way it got twisted into meaning outcome engineering. And I think that's what's triggered a lot of the political backlash. Equity isn't about predetermining who gets hired. It's about making sure everyone competes fairly.
Yeah, very interesting, Danny. And this concept of, maybe the ethos that drove DE&I is still there and valid. I mean, ultimately, I find very few people that don't want to have a just system. Ultimately, I don't find that many people who have a problem with hiring, opening up the talent pool and getting the best people for the job. That seems to me pretty much just common sense. But perhaps the language has changed and perhaps the techniques have changed to get there. Very good. Okay, Theo Smith, your view. You're a consultant and author, and I think predominantly in the UK. So maybe there's I've presented this as inherently a US decline in DE&I, but obviously that's affected everyone globally. What's the state of play in the UK as far as you can see it this year, Theo?
Yeah, honestly, I'm actually not predominantly UK, but that more globally because of the nature of the way organizations work these days. But that's fine. US, 1.17 million layoffs in 2025. It's like the most layoffs in like 20 odd years, right? Part of the problem we've got with the situation we find ourselves in, so if we think UK focused, The UK has kind of disbanded D&I roles within government, right? They're not important anymore. And what we've seen is a significant rise this year in challenges through the court around why people are losing their jobs, for example, or why they're not getting through recruitment processes. So we've seen legal cases going up around D&I and neurodiversity, for example. Yet we've seen a decrease in the roles that are focused on ensuring inclusion within government organizations, right? That, without a doubt, is going to impact all different facets and aspects of society, organizations, the way people are. The thing that I would say is where I see a correlation around what's happening now and some of the risks around those big figures of people being laid off is when we saw in COVID, lots of people lose their jobs. Disproportionately, we saw neurodivergent talent and many other individuals who are in minority groups, however you want to define that, disproportionately lost their jobs, often because they were in part-time jobs, they were in industries that were impacted, lower pay, lower skill, however you want to define it. They were jobs that went quickly and easily, right? Those individuals struggle to get back into meaningful work afterwards and have still struggled. And now we hit a period of 1.17 million record, layoffs in US and a lot of layoffs in the UK. Without a doubt, that is going to impact those on the sharp edges of society. And so what I'm seeing is that some of the things that were done in 2024 didn't impact us immediately in the first 3 to 6 months of this year, but they're absolutely impacting us now in the 6 months to the end of this year. But the hope is that many of the organizations I work with are telling me, and these organizations in tech, in insurance, that actually organizations that historically they're doing really well. They have, like Danny said, quietly got on with it. They've held off their D&I budgets, but what they're telling me is they are going to go forwards with them next year, and they're already putting plans in place, quietly and covertly, not in the public space in place. And some of these global organizations, but not necessarily restricted in the way that some American organizations may be, based on, the challenges with what's going over there at the moment. So that's my 2 penneth.
No, brilliant. Really, thank you for all of your thoughts here, folks. Really smart sort of observations. And focusing down on the UK a little bit, but obviously one of the challenges the UK has is like, I haven't got the highest rate of underemployment in the world, like on a per capita basis. So 9 million people that are quote unquote underemployed, which means that firstly, they're not in work, and secondly, they're not looking for work. And, again, this is to Theo's point, a majority of a larger percentage of those people are in the marginalized groups. So we have a vested interest in trying to open up access to all of these people and giving them opportunities to get into the economic system again. So I do think, hopefully, cross fingers, 2026, we'll see some sort of revival of confidence, of initiative in trying to connect the dots on that. Let's focus on technology. Bas and Maddie were talking about, hey, it looks like assessments, maybe that just is getting rid of the CV in the blue collar space. That seems like it may be opening up, maybe inadvertently, but it may open up sort of greater participation from these underrepresented groups. Is there a way we get to diversity without there necessarily being a diversity angle to it? You know what I mean? It's like the purpose of using the assessment, I think, is to try and prevent recruiters having to manually review too many CVs. But as an outcome of that, might we not get a more diverse talent pipeline in the end, because we're not looking at the CV anymore? Thoughts on this, Morgan Lobb?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? AI is obviously a great leveler. It helps everybody to perform better. Those that adopt it, have access to those tools, have a great advantage. You brought up a point about so I'm going to kind of rewind and connect that a little bit, because you mentioned the 9 million economically inactive, and that was a report that came out just a couple of weeks ago. Now, that actually represents £85 billion worth of benefits that are being paid out by the British taxpayers to those individuals that are on benefits. That 85 billion in benefits equates to about 16 billion in lost revenue that HMRC are not getting through PAYE. So by having groups that don't have access to work or are disproportionately sidelined, as Theo brought up earlier, it becomes everybody's problem. It's not just, the disabled community or the ethnicity groups or, women's pay. It becomes society's problem. So it's definitely something the government are looking at operating on very quickly through next year, through the Keep Britain Working campaign and Disability Confident. I was at the House of Lords last night and I was talking to Sir Stephen Timms about the reinvigoration of Disability Confident to now bring people with disabilities into the workplace. And there's a lot of talk about how AI can support that, because we're working in an era where you can work from home. You can be given tools now for access to work that can help level you up and become more economically active. And I think technology for job seekers, not just for writing CVs and writing cover letters, the tools that they have to become more efficient are going to make us all more productive. And it's incredibly important that we all look at how we play our part in our hiring and how we manage those biases to ensure that we're giving everybody a fair chance of the role and not discounting people because we think diversity has been killed. We've got to focus on how everybody helps each other.
Morgan, again, I love the way you're reframing on this, because diversity, if we could sell this in, I hate to use the word sell, but if we could reposition the idea, not as a favoring, minority groups, anything like that, that's obviously very triggering to the majority. But if we kind of describe it as a national interest, it's a national project to get as many people connected to opportunities as possible.
And let me just bring one point up, Danny, because I know I probably triggered you on the last part, but we are now framing this, because we've all grown up now. We all get it, right? The way we're selling this is it's values, culture, and belonging. And if organizations have the right inherent values, they will create great workplace cultures where people want to and feel that they belong. Those are the high-performing teams.
Yeah, very, very good. Okay, Danny, Stacey, does all of this end up in some way? Like, does the technology innovation, the use of sort of assessments, moving away from CV-based type recruiting, do we actually get DE&I in kind of through as an outcome rather than as an initiative?
I think we're seeing AI definitely push the conversations further. I think AI can absolutely improve consistency. I agree with that. And I think that's great for fairness, but only if humans retain the judgment, as they should legally anyway. And I think AI is going to scale whatever system it is entering. So if you've got a fair system, that's going to become even fairer and scaled en masse. If you've got a biased system, that's just going to get much faster at being really biased. So I think governance becomes more important than ever. Transparency really matters, and human oversight continues to matter. I think AI doesn't just replace the fairness, it's just going to magnify whatever it comes up to. And I think we sometimes need to just pay attention to the candidate's perspective, what it's like to be a job seeker, having left Indeed recently and been on the other side and looked for a job. I think for underrepresented candidates, the hiring market, it feels really hard. And I think when processes get automated, that transparency often disappears. So that's where bias starts to silently grow. And I think right now, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, that fatigue that people are talking about, I think that aside, inside companies is colliding with this kind of higher anxiety that's outside of them. Candidates who already feel marginalized worry that they're going to be screened out faster, they're going to be understood less. Candidates from lower income or minority backgrounds, they're going to kind of feel the brunt of the shift, as Theo was saying. I think if hiring becomes more automated, it becomes more opaque. And I think one of your guests last week was talking about pay to apply now. which is really scary because who can afford to pay for a job? It's not going to be those less represented demographics. I tell you that now. And I think with social mobility still low, especially in places like the UK, every unclear rejection just feels really personal. And people are asking, is it my CV? Was it me? I think the trust gap is widening. And I'll just say that the candidates, they want proof that companies aren't just fast, they're fair.
Yeah, really good, Danny. And it brings back to a point Adam mentioned earlier, start of the show, proxy bias. A lot of people who have experienced negative sort of outcomes as a result of their identity, for instance, they're going to be super sensitive to scenarios where that might happen again. And sometimes it may come through AI being inappropriately used, unintentionally used, but it then produces negative outcomes. And without any clear sort of explanation at the baseline, but product design at a deeper level, then you're going to just get more disaffected, disappointed, demotivated recruiters, sort of candidates out there. And I've been there. I've been in a situation where super low motivation and my ability to contribute economically in that state was actually very, very, very dire. So, I'm very, very connected with the concept of the person that's really at low ebb, having been unemployed for a long period. So I get it. Go on, Mogs.
I'm sorry, Theo. Before, I just want to interject on a quick point because Adam brought up earlier about LinkedIn's algorithms favouring male content. And actually, if we look at the AI bias, which Danny touched on, Microsoft just announced that they're not going to do a diversity report this year. They've done it for the last 6 years, and now they've retracted on that. At a point where we most need a representative foundation to be building this new future of AI, we need everybody's input. We need neurospicy, we need men, we need women, we need different age groups, we need different genders and ethnicities. Everybody needs to be involved in this. And if companies are pulling back, shoving stuff under the rug, and it's back to the white men because they're the highest paid supposedly and the smartest for creating this stuff, we start off on the wrong footing. And I think that that's something that we really need to be careful about, is about who's building this kit and is it fair for everybody moving forward, because the algorithm will bite you if it doesn't.
Really interesting. Couple of things. Firstly, I didn't know about the Microsoft scenario. If there's a bit of news on that and you want to share it with me, please do stick it in the chat. I'd love to know more. And secondly, I love the term neurospicy. Theo Smith, what do you think of neurospicy, mate? Is that all right?
Yeah, it's fine. It's just another term, isn't it? I mean, you can pick as many trades terms, whatever labels as you want. I've got them stacked up. So many, I could confuse anyone about all of them, and so many, I'm confused by all of them. The reality is, just a couple of points I wanted to wrap up on. We were getting excited about technology, innovation, assessment, and everything else. I did some work recently. I assessed 100 live graduate entry-level job adverts in the UK, and 86% of them demanded excellent attention to detail and highly organized. And the problem I've got here, right, is that's 86% of them. If we're going to use assessment to assess that skill, we've already lost, right? If 86% of grad jobs are putting that as the top skill, and then they want 58% of them want them to be able to work in a fast-paced, work well under pressure. Now, if you've met somebody who has excellent attention to detail, hyper-focused, mathematical brain, and yet you want them to work in this very disruptive, fast-paced environment, I'm telling you, there's a conflict for some of those people, right? You're not going to get the best out of them. Those two things conflict, yet they both come up really high in terms of the desired skills across these jobs. If we're going to turn that into an automated process of assessment or whatever else, with AI or even human intervention, we got a problem. The other thing I did some research on is I saw 6 months probation period come up in a job for a HR leader in a charity, and it was at the top of the job, 6 months probation. Now that's not uncommon in senior leadership roles, right? But it's at the top. Like, here's the pay, here's the 6 months probation. And I'm like, that's a bit aggressive. Like, what kind of trauma has that company been through to put that at the top of a HR leader's job in a charity? So I'm like, I'm fascinated by this. I'm going to go and find out what other organizations have this 6 months probation. Surprise, surprise, it wasn't tech innovators. It wasn't big corporate organizations. It was government organizations. It was the NHS. It was charities. It was education. And they were all putting them. And they weren't all senior leadership jobs. They were carers. They were teachers. They were... And I'm like, are they giving them 6 months pay if they decide to get rid of them? I bet you they're not. So I just wanted to put that point of, in all this incredible ideas around what we're going to do for DE&I, inherently, we're still failing in the basic content we're putting out there to attract or discourage talent. So I think that's a realization that we don't need Microsoft for that. We don't need anyone else. Any person on this call can think about the content that they write and how they influence people within the organization around how they communicate their roles with the world. I think we need to take a bit of greater responsibility. Like Baz said earlier, you can't just go, that tech looks great, let's implement it for us, without understanding what that tech is based on. You know, where's the evidence base behind it? And so that's my thoughts.
Brilliant. I tell you what, the people who've gone here, the brilliant monologuers. It's like the three of you are amazing. It's like, Adam, you're about to say something, mate. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to chunk the conversation up just a little bit. I'm conscious we're near the end of the show, right? But something that I've been talking about quite a lot recently, and you and I were discussing it on LinkedIn earlier. I think we're in an era of what I've described as employment brutality. And I don't think that companies care about their people. Maybe I think they care about their people less than they have done in the context of my career. I can't remember any time where people have been considered as an alternative to technology quite as much as they are right now. And because the CEO's child showed them ChatGPT 18 months ago, and they put in place an immediate corporate transformation, what we've got is a situation where HR teams are continuously being told to evaluate people alongside tech solutions. And so this is one of the reasons why, alongside Donald Trump, of course, why DEI and other, let's call it fine-tuning things, important, but fine-tuning initiatives around the subject of talent acquisition have probably taken a backseat.
Yeah, I think it's really, there is a macroeconomic context to all of this, where everybody basically is suffering under higher costs of operating a business, and much tougher competitive environment. Global economic growth has been anemic. I blame Donald Trump explicitly for that. I think he shaved off something like 0.7% projected economic growth with the Trump tariffs. That translates into tens of millions of jobs that haven't been created, mate. So that affects us like pretty directly. And when you've got sort of companies that are afraid to invest because they don't know what the heck the economic environment is going to be, they're going to start chopping things back rather rudely. And that includes all of the initiatives that 5 years ago they professed were top of priority, but in fact, as it turned out, far less so when the rubber hits the road, so to say. Anyway, lots to talk about. You've given me some inspiration on what to do next year with regards to some of the shows. I want to talk about whether artificial Gen AI job ads, what's the impact of that when it comes down to DE&I? Because I think what is going to happen is that a lot of job ads are going to be written entirely by AI. We're going to throw away, hey, make this inclusive language. And what does that produce? Does that produce better outcomes, or does it just produce more vanilla stuff? Like paradoxically, it produces a vanilla copy and doesn't switch anybody on. It switches everyone off. But anyway, might be a topic for next show next week. Anyway, we've got to go because time is pressing. I want to thank all of our guests for showing up here and joining with this conversation. Theo Smith, wonderful to see you, sir. Hopefully we'll catch up this side of Christmas. If not, we'll catch up earlier next year. Danny Stacey, great to see you, mate. Let me know when you're next in London. We'll catch up, sir. Morgan Lobb, you're always in London, so let me know when you're around and we'll catch up hopefully before Christmas is out as well. Take it easy, you free. All right, that's it, folks. We're leaving you right now. We are back next week with another show. We've got a double header next week, actually. We're going to do a fraud assessment demo midweek with Endorse. That's going to be a really interesting sort of demo show. And then on Friday, we are back with another sort of look back. We're going to be talking about sourcing. And so make sure you turn up for that if you're still at the top of funnel stuff. I think employer branding as well and recruitment marketing as well. So make sure you join that show. We're going to keep this going to the end of the year. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you later. Cool.
Yeah, just one quick thing. I really love the shows where I know quite a lot about the topic, and I've got quite a lot to include in the discussion, but I equally love the shows where I don't know nearly as much about it either. You learn. I learn a lot because of you, because I do this show. Because it makes me read the newsletter, which I would read. I would read it anyway, but it makes me properly read it. It's like, it's commitment.
No, Adam, I do thank you, because you're playing a pair of us are playing Gooseberry a little bit there, because there was so much sort of educational content shared. It's like our ability to interject wasn't particularly strong. But yeah, I appreciate you being there and listening in. That was great. Anyway, you got an exciting weekend, haven't you, mate? So enjoy the show, enjoy the dinner, enjoy the show later. And let's book in a catch up, mate. We'll do that before Christmas, hopefully.
Definitely before Christmas.
We'll have a chit chat. Yeah, we'll do that off air. And we'll see what's what. All right. See ya.